So Skill 4 is going to talk to us or help us through PEMDAS. And so order of operations is definitely something that you've seen before your Algebra 1 class. But I think it just involves a lot of steps, and so sometimes we really just have to commit to the process and it becomes a lot easier. But I want you to, before we start anything, I want you to pause the video in a second and I want you to answer this first question, and then I want you to unpause and see what my answer is. So the question is, why might PEMDAS, like PEMDAS, be misleading? So if somebody looks at PEMDAS, looks at this picture, looks at this picture up here, or maybe actually just this section right here, how could that maybe be misleading to somebody that's trying to complete an order of operations problem? So pause the video, take 30 seconds to write that down, or a minute to think about it, and then unpause it and we'll talk about it. Okay, so here's my answer to that question. It can trick you into thinking you have to multiply before you divide and add before you subtract. And really, the multiply divide is an or situation. So multiply or divide, whatever comes first. So I want you to put the word or right here. Multiply or divide, whatever comes first, left to right. Then we move on to addition and subtraction. You're going to add or subtract whatever comes first. And so I think because we say PEMDAS, which is really, sounds really good when we say it, it can maybe trick us into thinking that no matter what, we always multiply before we divide. And that just isn't the case. We're going to do multiplication or division, whatever comes first. Then we're going to move on to addition, subtraction, whatever comes first. So when you're doing an order of operations problem, like I said earlier, you really need to commit to the process. PEMDAS is like half understanding math and half work ethic. So if you don't have the work ethic, you're going to get it wrong most of the time. We really have to just commit to putting in the work to get the right answer. And I have this theory that if you just do the work the first time, you're probably going to get the right answer. So we move on. We never have to do that problem again. If you don't do the work and you try to do stuff in your head or try to just do it in the calculator, then you're probably not going to get the question right, the answer right. And then you're just going to have to try that problem again and again and again until you finally submit to just doing the work and having the work ethic to get it done. So when you do your work, it's really cool because it ends up looking like you've created an upside down. Down triangle. So your work should get smaller and smaller and smaller all the way down to your final answer. Every time you do a section of PEMDAS, you do that, you write what's left, and then you have a new problem. And you keep up that those steps to help you find the final answer, and it ends up looking like this upside down triangle when you're done with all of your work. So let's just get right into a couple example problems. So I'm just going to write PEMDAS up here so we can see it. And it's not a bad idea if you know right now that you're struggling with this topic, which those of you watching this showed on the pretest that you were. You should just write PEMDAS before each problem, and because that's just going to help you remember this is PEMDAS, this is order of operations. So this is really important to understand PEMDAS. You really have to understand it to be able to work backwards to solve equations, because solving equations is just undoing PEMDAS. It's going in the opposite direction of PEMDAS. So if you can get PEMDAS down really well, you should be able to undo it and solve equations really easily. So let's look at some things that we see here. So going in order, I see parentheses. So that's the first thing I'm going to concentrate on. So inside those parentheses, I know that I am going to add. And so I'm going to write this to the side. I'm going to add. So I know I'm going to take care of parentheses first. And within those parentheses, I'm going to add. And then once that's done, I'm going to do my exponent. So I'm going to put a little 2 right here to tell me that I have a little exponent. And then after that, I don't have multiplication or division, but I do have subtraction. So I know I'm going to subtract. So that helps me kind of keep in order what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to add, I'm going to square it, and I'm going to subtract. So let's do these problems. So the first thing I'm going to do is parentheses. I'm going to work what is being done inside the parentheses. So 4 plus 7 is 11. So as soon as I work out what's in the parentheses can drop, or you can put them around, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to write everything that's still left. Then I can check this off because I'm done with addition. My next step is squaring. So 11 squared is 121. Then I write what's left, minus 6. So I can check that off. Now my last step is subtraction. So 121 minus 6 is 115. And so this is my final answer. And if you notice, there's like this upside down triangle that it formed. Okay, let's try example 2. So example 2 is a little tricky because you have to really kind of see what's happening first. And so what's really cool is to understand that you're going to do all of this math and then you're going to divide by 5. So another way to write this would be 2 to the 4th minus 1, all in parentheses, divided by 5. So that kind of helps you see, okay, I'm going to take care of the numerator first. Even though the numerator has some subtraction and I know that I'm dividing by 5 later, I'm still going to take care of all the numerator first, and then my final step will be divided by 5. So the first thing that I know that I'm going to do is parentheses. And within the parentheses, I'm going to have this exponent, so this little 4. Once that's taken care of, I'll have a minus 1. And my last step will be to divide by 5. So I know those are the 3 steps that I'm going to do. So 2 to the 4th is 16. So I have 16, now I'm going to write everything else that's still in the problem. So 16 minus 1 over 5. Check. My next step is to subtract. So I have 16 minus 1. 16 minus 1 is 15. Oops, I don't know what's going on, sorry. So 15. Now I'm going to write everything else still left in the problem, so divided by 5. So my subtraction is done. And finally, my last step is division. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And again, this little triangle is kind of hard to see, but everything kind of narrowed itself down just to one little number at the very bottom. So let's try example 3. So we have parentheses in this problem, but it's important to kind of point out that we only, for order of operations, we only care about parentheses if there's actually something to do inside those parentheses. So these parentheses are really just showing us that we're going to be multiplying this 3 times 5 and multiplying this 5 times 5. So these aren't really parentheses like in terms of are we going to do something inside the parentheses. The parentheses are just there to show multiplication. So when we work through PEMDAS, when you see the P and you say parentheses and you ask yourself, are there parentheses, you need to be asking, are there parentheses with math inside of them? And if not, you can skip over that and move on to exponents. So in this problem, we don't have parentheses that have math inside of them, so we're able to skip to exponents. So we have our 2 to the 5th. And so 2 to the 5th is 32. So we're going to write 32. And then we write everything else that is still left in the problem. So we're done with parentheses, we're done with exponents. And so now we can move on to multiplication or division. And so we have 2 things here happening with multiplication. So let's just work on this first one. So let's write what we have here to the left, 32 plus, and let's do this first multiplication. And so 3 times 5 is 15 minus 5 times 5. So we go back up, we look in PEMDAS, we still have parentheses, we don't have exponents, and we do still have multiplication. We've got this little multiplication situation going on right here. So we need to solve that before we move on. So let's write down 32 plus 15, and then let's take this as a negative 5 times 5, and that gives us negative 25. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, but that's a subtraction, or I thought that was subtraction. Subtraction and negative are the same thing. Subtraction is the action of a negative sign. So if you want to use that dash mark for subtraction, then it would have been minus 5 times 5, which is 25, minus 25. If you want to use that dash mark for a negative, then it's just negative 5 times 5, which is negative 25. We get the same answer because it's the same thing. Okay, so we're done with multiplication. We have no division. Now we're on to addition and subtraction, whatever comes first. So we have 32 plus 15, which is 47, minus 25. And then our very last step is 47 minus 25, which is 22. And so 22 is our final answer for this order of operations or solving or simplifying expressions problem. So let's try one more example together. So I'm going to write PEMDAS at the top, just helps us stay organized. So we look at this and we say, okay, we have parentheses. Is there math to do on the inside? And yes, there is. There's 2 to the third. So 2 to the third is 8. So let's write everything that we have, but instead of 4 times 2 to the third, we have 4 times 8. Great, so we're done with parentheses. We still have parentheses, but we have nothing to do inside of them. So they're just there now, so we don't have to write a multiplication sign. So our next step is exponents. Nope, took care of that when we worried about the parentheses, so we have nothing to do anymore with exponents. And so now we have multiplication or division, whatever comes first, and we do have this multiplication situation right here. So we have 8 minus 2, and I'm going to say plus 4 or positive 4 times 8, which is positive 32. So we're done with multiplication, we're done with addition. So now we are on to, we're done with multiplication, we're done with division. Now we're on to addition and subtraction. So we have addition and we have subtraction. And subtraction is first, and that's okay because it's addition or subtraction, whichever comes first. So we have 8 minus 2 is 6. Plus 32, and then our last one is addition. 6 plus 32 is 38. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of your PEMDAS, making sure that you understand that it's an or situation with these, multiplication or division, whatever comes first, subtraction or addition, whatever comes first, and then just really committing to the process so you stay organized and you get the right answer the first time so you don't have to keep doing it over and over again.